Howdy y'all, it's Russell back, and on today's video, it is December the 23rd, 2021. We've got a beautiful day here. It's starting to warm up just a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and swap out the transmission fluid, the Dextron 6. It's probably just regular old generic fluid that the rebuilder that did my transmission used. It's been in there for 16,000 miles. And I'm going to be swapping it over with the Amsoil 100% synthetic OE automatic transmission fluid. Why am I doing this? Well, and why am I, most importantly, why am I not putting in the Amsoil Signature Series? And this is the reason. I have never used the OE fluid before. The Signature Series is by far a better fluid. However, this is a very, very, very good fluid, and it's light years better than anything else on the market. Dextron 6 by nature is a full synthetic. That's what GM specs, and a full synthetic is kind of misleading. It actually means that it is just like regular engine oil. It is a highly refined petroleum-based product. The government lets them call it synthetic. This is actually real synthetic fluid, okay? You can always tell because it says 100% synthetic. So what I'm going to be doing is when I drain this fluid out, I'm going to take a sample of it and send it off to the lab, and then I'm going to run this fluid probably for 16,000 miles, take a sample out, and I'm going to switch it over to the Signature Series at that time and compare the two lab results. I don't know exactly what brand the guy that rebuilt the transmission used. I have no idea. It was a transmission shop, so I'm sure it's just whatever bulk Dextron 6 fluid they use that's cheapest. I've got for those of you who don't know, I've got a Durali spin-on transmission filter here. This is a add-on transmission filter that will filter out far, 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 far better than just the strainer that's in the pan alone. And I've also got the B&M heavy-duty plate cooler right here. The transmission that's in this truck is a 700R. It is slightly built. 700Rs are really good. They are basically an overdrive Chevy Turbo Hydromatic 350. They're strong. They're not indestructible, but they are, for this truck, I don't tow anything. It's just a daily driver. This transmission one runs really cool, probably around the 150 to 170 degree range in the summer. Just like the Tundra, that transmission runs even cooler. It runs around 135 to 150 degrees. It's just, they're both easy on transmission fluid. So anyway, I'm going to show you how I'm going to do this because I'm actually not going to drop the pan. We're not going to touch the pan at all. I'm going to do a fluid exchange. Not a flush, but an exchange. And the outline of what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be taking 14 quarts of the Amsoil, and we'll be placing that in the transmission as the old fluid is coming out. And I'm going to show you how to do that next. All right, so these two lines right here, this is the line that comes from the transmission. It goes into the spin-on filter, then it goes through the radiator, goes through the auxiliary cooler, and comes back out from this line to the transmission. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect this line right here, and I will hook a clear hose in here and put it in the bucket, and that's how we will do the exchange. So I'm going to go ahead and do this with both hands. Let me just set you guys up here. Sorry that this is facing into the sun, but this is my life. So the reason that I did it this way is because somebody had cut these transmission lines and put a junky auxiliary cooler in there. And I do have new hard lines I was going to replace them with, which I will do at some point. But there's going to be a little bit of fluid come out of here. This off. Now these are fuel injection clamps. The bands are a little stronger than regular clamps you probably are used to seeing. You can use those, but I had these, so I used them. Okay. When these are hard to get off, that's a very good sign. Clear line that I've got here, I've already got a barb fitting, which I normally will just take this barb fitting and stick in this hose like this, and then I'll show you what we'll do with the other end of it here to prepare for our fluid exchange. All right, so I forgot, I had to get a cup to take a sample. But anyway, so we got about 5 quarts out. All right, so I measured the exact amount of fluid that we got out the first time, and it was like 5,100 milliliters, which is a little more than 5 liters, which is a little bit more than 5 quarts. So I will be putting in 5 quarts back in, and then a little more, probably 5.5. Alright, so I have the lines reconnected, got everything cleaned up, and I've put in about 3 quarts. So I'm going to run the truck for a little bit and get the transmission hot, and then recheck the fluid and top it off to exactly what it needs. Alright, so I'm just letting it run just a little bit, let the fluid get hot. Going to recheck it on the dipstick, and then we'll take it for a drive, and we'll see if there is any noticeable difference. I don't suspect there probably will be, but the oil analysis or the fluid analysis will tell us what condition the fluid was in that was in there for 16,000 miles. All right, so I am back from my test drive, and I want to tell you I'm very pleased with having gone ahead and swapped out the transmission fluid with the Amsoil. Let me tell you the difference that I do notice. The shift, first, second, and third feel the exact same. There's no difference there. The place where I feel it is when it shifts into overdrive, and also when the torque converter locks up. So before, the truck, how do I explain this? It was a little more of a pronounced shift, and when it shifted into overdrive. When the torque converter would lock up, there was a tiny little bit of shudder. Now I know people that have a 700R or a 4L60E sometimes will experience transmission torque converter shudder. I'm not exactly sure why, but it wasn't bad on my truck. It was just, you know, you could tell it was there. So, and it wasn't bad enough for me to say, hey, there's a problem. It's just some of the GM transmissions do that. Now, when it shifts into overdrive, it feels just like the first, second, and third gear shift. And when the torque converter locks up, It's nice and quick and clean. It's not harsh at all. You can definitely feel it locking up, but there's no shutter whatsoever. It's just, it locks up and that's it. Now, one of the things that, the other thing that I noticed is on these transmissions, the truck will shift into overdrive and then shift or have the torque converter lock up as low as 35 miles per hour. That's just the way that these transmissions are designed to operate. They do it for fuel mileage. Now, locking up at 35 miles an hour is, unless, you know, this engine's only got like 300 foot-pounds of torque, it's a bad idea, especially when you start going up a grade or something. It's just, it's too low. 45 would be the optimal, the optimal speed, and would keep the engine in the optimal range, but, you know, I guess they figure they could save 1 or 2 miles per gallon if they had it lock up at 35, but it's just too low. But anyway, when it would lock up at 35, there was a small bit of, tiny bit of vibration in the transmission I could feel. Now when it locks up at 35, there's nothing. It's nice and smooth. So I think that whole process there has something to do with the tiny bit of torque converter shutter, and I think it's probably the clutches in the torque converter itself. They just like the Amsoil. I don't know, but anyway, so that is that's the results. So I'm going to send this fluid off that I got. I'm going to send it off to Blackstone Labs and get a report back, and I will do a video on that. And then I'm going to run this fluid for the same amount of time, about 16,000 miles, and do a analysis on that. At that time, I'm probably going to put the signature series in there, depending on the results. But I'm very pleased with the Amsoil OE fluid. All right, so that's enough talking for today. I'm going to go make me some food. I'm hungry, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your week and have a very, very Merry Christmas. And I will talk to you guys on the next video.